Silence. Before the blade is drawn, before the mind reaches for speed, there is silence. Most people believe learning fast is about shortcuts, about tricks, about consuming more, skimming quicker, hacking the surface of knowledge. They rush forward, drowning in information, yet starving for mastery. The samurai never rushed. They knew something modern minds have forgotten: speed is born from stillness, not chaos. And the one who learns fastest is not the one who moves quickly, but the one who moves with absolute clarity. So let me ask you a question that may unsettle you. What if your struggle to learn is not because you are slow, but because you are undisciplined? Stand at that edge for a moment. Do not answer yet. Just stand there. Because today, you are not here to collect information. You are here to enter a different way of seeing. A way forged by men who learned entire arts, strategies, and philosophies under the shadow of death. Men who had no luxury of confusion. Men who learned fast because their lives demanded it. This is not motivation. This is instruction. And it is built on 3 Japanese principles: ancient, precise, unforgiving, that can allow you to learn anything extremely fast, if you have the courage to apply them. The modern world is loud, constant, fragmented. You are told to multitask, to consume endlessly, to chase efficiency without depth. Yet despite all this progress, people feel overwhelmed, slow, mentally scattered. They start things but do not finish. They read books but retain nothing. They watch lessons but cannot execute. This is not because the mind is weak. It is because the mind is at war with itself. The samurai understood the battlefield long before modern psychology gave it a name. They knew the most dangerous enemy was not across the field, but inside the chest. Fear, ego, impatience, distraction. These were the forces that caused defeat before the sword ever met flesh. Today, your battlefield is not filled with arrows and steel. It is filled with notifications, comfort, endless options, and the illusion of progress. But the war is the same. And learning, true learning, is a form of combat. Miyamoto Musashi, undefeated in over 60 duels, did not win because he was physically superior. He won because he learned faster than his enemies adapted. He observed patterns. He stripped techniques to their essence. He practiced in isolation while others sought approval. Musashi wrote, "You can only fight the way you practice." The same is true for learning. If you practice distraction, you will fight confusion. If you practice patience, you will fight with clarity. If you practice depth, speed will follow. The samurai trained not to collect techniques, but to internalize principles. They could pick up a new weapon, a new strategy, a new terrain, and adapt rapidly, because they were grounded in fundamentals that did not change. This is where modern learning fails. It chases surface-level speed, not foundational power. So we return to the question, how do you learn anything extremely fast? Not by doing more. By doing less, but doing it correctly. The first principle is called shu. Shu means to protect or to obey. In traditional Japanese martial training, shu is the first stage of mastery. At this stage, the student does not innovate. They do not question the form. They do not seek shortcuts. They obey the method completely. To the modern ego, this feels restrictive, boring, slow. But this is where speed is secretly born. When a samurai began training, they were not encouraged to express themselves. They were encouraged to disappear, to become empty, to copy the master's movements exactly. Not because the master wanted obedience, but because the student's mind was untrained. Ego contaminates learning. When you try to learn something new while constantly asking, "How can I do this my way?" you slow yourself down. You fracture attention. You dilute the signal with noise. Shu demands humility. It says, for now, abandon your opinions. Suspend your identity. Enter the form completely. When Musashi studied swordsmanship, he did not mix styles early on. He immersed himself deeply. He observed how masters stood, breathed, waited. He absorbed rhythm before technique. This is why beginners who copy precisely often surpass those who try to customize too early. In learning, shu means this. Choose one source, one teacher, one method. Follow it exactly. Do not skim. Do not modify. Do not jump ahead. Protect the form. Your mind craves novelty, but mastery requires repetition. The samurai repeated the same cut thousands of times, not because they were slow learners, but because they understood the paradox: repetition compresses time. What feels slow in the moment becomes fast over years. Most people want to understand before they obey. The samurai obeyed until understanding emerged naturally. Learning extremely fast does not begin with intelligence. It begins with discipline. Ask yourself honestly, how often do you abandon the form too early? How often do you jump between methods, courses, strategies, never allowing one to take root? Speed is not about motion. It is about commitment. Shu builds the nervous system. It carves pathways into the mind. It removes decision fatigue. And once the foundation is laid, something changes. Which leads us to the second principle. The second principle is Ha. Ha means to break. This is the stage where understanding deepens. Where the student begins to see why the form works, not just how. But this stage cannot be rushed. It only opens to those who have honored Shu. In Ha, the samurai begins to test, to adapt, to remove what is unnecessary, but never recklessly, always with awareness. This is where learning accelerates dramatically. Because now, you are no longer memorizing. You are recognizing patterns. Zen monks understood this deeply. They did not study scriptures endlessly. They meditated until insight arose. Once the mind was quiet, learning became immediate. A single sentence could reveal an entire philosophy. Ha is where the mind shifts from effort to perception. You start to see the underlying structure of what you are learning. Whether it is language, skill, strategy, or art, the surface differences fall away, and the core reveals itself. Musashi reached Ha when he realized that swordsmanship was not about swords. It was about timing, distance, rhythm, and intent. Once he understood this, he could fight with oars, sticks, or empty hands. This is why true masters can learn new skills faster than beginners. They are not starting from zero. They are mapping the new onto the known. But Ha requires courage. Because breaking the form means letting go of certainty. It means facing confusion without panic. It means being willing to be wrong, to experiment, to refine. Most people never reach Ha because they abandon Shu too early, or because they cling to Shu forever, afraid to think independently. Learning extremely fast requires knowing when to obey and when to break. In practical terms, Ha means asking deeper questions. Why does this work? What is essential here? What can be removed without loss? This is not rebellion. It is refinement. In modern learning, Ha is where you stop copying notes and start teaching concepts in your own words. Where you stop following steps blindly and start anticipating outcomes. But Ha only reveals itself to the patient. And patience, in samurai philosophy, is not passive. It is controlled intensity. Which brings us to the third principle, the one few ever reach. The third principle is Ri. Ri means to separate or to transcend. This is the stage of mastery where form dissolves. Where learning becomes intuitive. Where speed is no longer something you pursue, it is something that happens. In Ri, the samurai does not think about technique. The body moves before the mind interferes. Action flows directly from awareness. This is where learning becomes frighteningly fast. At this stage, you can enter a new domain and progress rapidly, not because you know everything, but because you know how to learn. Musashi reached Ri when he no longer identified as a swordsman. He identified as a strategist of life. That is why his teachings apply far beyond combat. Ri is not about arrogance. It is about emptiness. The Zen concept of no mind applies here. When the mind is not cluttered with self-doubt, comparison, or overthinking, it absorbs instantly. Like a still lake reflecting the moon. But Ri cannot be forced. It emerges only after long obedience and careful breaking. Most people want Ri without Shu and Ha. They want intuition without discipline. Freedom without structure. The samurai knew this was impossible. Learning extremely fast is not a trick. It is a byproduct of identity. When you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to learn and start seeing yourself as a disciplined practitioner, everything changes. You no longer ask, how long will this take? You ask, what is required of me today? You no longer chase motivation. You rely on ritual. You no longer fear difficulty. You expect it. This is the inner transformation. Now, let us speak plainly about the mind. Fear slows learning. Not fear of danger, but fear of discomfort. Of confusion. Of looking foolish. Of being a beginner. The samurai trained in cold mornings, alone, repeating movements no one would ever see. They did not need validation. Their discipline was internal. Ego is the enemy of speed. When you are obsessed with appearing smart, you avoid the very repetitions that would make you skilled. When you are impatient, you skim. When you skim, you forget. Distraction is another silent killer. The samurai trained in environments of silence because attention is a weapon. A scattered mind cannot learn deeply. And without depth, speed is an illusion. Learning fast requires narrowing your world. One focus. One practice. One direction. This is not deprivation. It is power. Ask yourself, how much of your learning time is truly undivided? How often are you present without reaching for stimulation? Mastery demands solitude. Not loneliness, but intentional isolation. Let me tell you a story. A young Ronin, masterless, wandered from village to village after his lord's death. He had no school, no guidance, only fragments of training. He fought when necessary, lost often, survived barely. One winter, he found shelter near a Zen temple. The monks allowed him to stay, on one condition. He would train silently every morning before dawn, repeating a single movement with a wooden sword. The Ronin resisted. It felt pointless. He wanted techniques, strategies, secrets. But he stayed. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The same movement. The same silence. The same cold air biting his hands. Something changed. His balance improved. His breathing slowed. His awareness sharpened. When he finally left the temple and faced an opponent, he realized he was no longer reacting. He was already there. He had learned faster in silence than he ever had in chaos. The lesson is clear. Speed is not found in accumulation. It is found in elimination. So here is the inner code, the samurai way to learn anything extremely fast. First, submit to the form. Choose depth over variety. Protect the practice. Second, break with awareness. Seek principles, not steps. Refine without ego. Third, transcend identity. Become the type of person who learns, not someone who tries. This is not easy. But nothing powerful is. And now, we return to where we began. Silence. You are standing at the edge again. But now, you see what lies below. Learning fast is not about rushing forward. It is about removing what holds you back. The samurai did not hurry. Yet they moved with terrifying speed. If you adopt their principles, not as techniques, but as a way of being, you will find that learning bends to you. Calm, focused, unshakable. This is the path. Walk it.